Let's take a look at this week's 44's Finest Best Onion Rings. For this week's 44's Finest Best Onion Rings in town, we take you to the Workhorse Cafe in Jamaica, Vermont, where they take pride in making good food for good people. Let's go inside and see what they're all about. The irresistible deliciousness of an all-American classic, onion rings, with a twist, of course.
You know what? Honestly, it's all in the beer. Has like a strong ale flavor to it, but has that light tempura, like battering effect to it. So they're very light and fluffy, and then the onions that we use are very sweet.
The addictive fried dish that is so good, even the yogis make a pit stop after a morning full of exercise.
Yeah, right after yoga at 10 o'clock. Yeah, because they're delicious and I just love them. And this is a wonderful cook over here that makes the most incredible onion rings in the world.
The Workhorse Cafe has been around since 2015, but revamped by Kurt and Teresa Williams just 9 months ago, creating the perfect menu styled with comfort food options and the perfect atmosphere to go right along with it.
When we first opened, it was about what people wanted us to be. What was our identity going to be? You know, what did the people in the area want from us?
And believe it or not, they almost put their famous onion rings on the back burner. But the local foodies had other plans.
Everybody just kept coming in and I was like, these onion rings are awesome. These are some of the best onion rings I've ever had. So we're like, I can't take them off the menu. I have to keep them. So that's where it's kind of grown to, is that people just absolutely, they love everything about the menu. Just the onion rings just happen to be one aspect of the menu that people love.
And you can't have a bad thing here, and that's the buzz. Anyone who's had anything here, whether it's their onion rings, which are everyone's favorite, they will always have a sandwich with onion rings. They will always have a salad with onion rings, a Diet Coke, onion rings.
Staying true to those who have supplied them with the best of the best.
Reinhardt Food Service is one of our main purveyors, and you know, we've worked with them, both of us have worked with them for years. And when we opened the business, we were like, that's who our purveyor is going to be, is Reinhardt Food Service, and that's who we stick with.
Always working to make every menu item from scratch, or what Kurt calls down home cooking. These guys like to keep it simple. They use 2 ingredients, flour and beer. We're gonna go over here and let these onion rings fry until they're golden. Serving the community with the freshest eats around, but also a home-like environment that keeps them coming back.
So when you come in, it's like walking into a kitchen at home. You know, when you come into our kitchen, that's it. This is our home. You're welcome anytime, and we'll feed you. You know, you come in hungry, we'll feed you. You're not going to leave here hungry at all.
Giving this small town a place where good conversations come together over large portions of food.
We're all about community. Anything that's opened around here, we all hope and pray that it brings community together, a place where people talk to each other. I mean, we are in such a, you know, we're spread out, you know, we're in the woods, you know, our homes are not like together as they are in the city, so you could go days without seeing anyone unless a place like this exists.
All right, Kirk, Rebecca, Teresa, why are your onion rings the best in town?
Because they're homegrown.
Hey, and that's why Workhorse Cafe is 44's finest. Cheers.
Cheers.
As one customer put it, come for the onion rings and stay for the laughs.
You're watching Local 44 Morning Brew with Polixeni Manjari, Spencer Thomas, and Skytracker meteorologist Amanda Tebow. This is Local 44 Morning Brew.
It is 7:23. Good morning. I'm Polixeni Manjari. Rutland City Police are investigating a suspicious death that started after a probation officer was doing a welfare check at a home. This all happening on Harrison Avenue Thursday night. An officer at the scene told us that a man was found unresponsive inside that home, and there were objects inside that led them to think that the death is suspicious. Neighbors told us that the man who lived in the home was a quiet, older man. This is, of course, a developing story, and we will give you more information as we get it. And Vermont's AG is taking on several national companies that make and sell PFAS, potentially toxic chemicals that have contaminated the state's groundwater. TJ Donovan says that those chemicals have caused significant harm to Vermont's environment. Julie Moore, the secretary of the Agency of Natural Resources, said that her team will be testing 700 public water supply sites by the end of the year to see if any of those chemicals still exist. And if they do, the state can then take action to remove those toxins.
These PFAS chemicals are so ubiquitous in our environment at this point. They don't break down over time. And so it's not just the immediate public health impact, but those long-term chronic impacts that we're concerned about.
The goal is to clean it up, and the goal is to make Vermont whole, and the goal is to hold these companies accountable.
And Vermont is not alone in all of this. Many other states around the country have also taken legal action against the makers of PFAS. And the state of Vermont hopes that a new technique may address a summer worry at Lake Carmi.
Woohoo!
Oh. Switch was flipped Thursday on a nearly $1 million aeration project. The lake has struggled with outbreaks of blue-green algae in recent years, and the warm weather only makes it worse. The idea is that the project will oxygenate the lake and recirculate the water. The president of the Lake Carmi Campus Association is hopeful that this will stop the problem.
It's based on science, and we have the utmost confidence that it's going to help tremendously with keeping the lake free of algae blooms.
A Michigan-based company is the one who installed this system, and this weekend is supposed to be a big deal for the lake, with many events leading up to the 4th of July. All right, well, he's posed as a pilot, a lawyer, and even a doctor. Frank Abagnale is one of the most respected experts in the world when it comes to fraud. He has turned his years of duping people into a presentation on how to spot and avoid those scams, which was what brought him to Burlington last night. His story of lies and deception inspired him to write a book titled Catch Me If You Can. You might have heard of it. It was later turned into a Hollywood film directed by Steven Spielberg. He was sentenced to 12 years in the U.S. for fraud and related charges, but Abagnale would only serve 4 years of that term to take a role with the FBI. And we're tossing it over to Amanda Tebow. She is standing by with another look at today's very hot weather. Hey, Amanda.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Happy Friday to you. We've got that scorching late June sun already up doing its thing, pushing temps closer and closer to 70. We've actually hit that mark already in Montreal. 67 in Plattsburgh, 65 in Burlington. Middlebury clocking in at 62, so is Montpelier and Newport, as well as Lebanon. We're going to keep on moving. Those 50s become 60s, 60s become 70s, eventually maxing out in the 80s, mid and upper 80s today. You know, 90 degrees is possible, particularly in the Connecticut River Valley or the Champlain Valley. It will depend, though, on when thin high clouds stream in this afternoon. If it's a little earlier, kind of takes away our chance at 90, but we'll be pretty close either way.
From WFFF, this is Local 44 Morning Brew.
TGIF. Happy Friday to you. Good morning. It's almost the weekend. And this, of course, is the local 44 Morning Brew just before 7:30. I'm Amanda Tebow with Paul and Jim.
Good morning, everyone.
Well, debate number 2 is officially in the books, and people in our region are weighing in.
Hear what some local residents have to say about Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders' performance.
And keeping kids protected from sexual abuse.
What New York State is now requiring after Aaron's Law is officially passed. All right, today's going to require a lot of things. maybe like a nice coffee,
water,
a pool,
shade,
anything cold,
popsicles.
That's a good one. Oh, creamy. Yeah. Nailed it. Yeah. Perfect.
All right, so that's your Friday in a nutshell. We just planned it all out for you. A lot of drinking and eating cool items. We have very warm temperatures in front of us. It's going to be a great day to hit the lake or the mountains. So let's get that rec forecast going here. We will be a lot cooler if you head up in elevation, and today you will be shower free. You see that little thunderstorm icon? That's more for tonight. So hiking is a great bet today, but just make sure you stay well hydrated. This weekend, you're dodging showers as you go. Maybe a few thunderstorms Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening. Not necessarily a washout, but that rain could be heavy at times, just as we saw last night or Wednesday afternoon. So same word of caution if you're headed out on the lake tomorrow. You get in the vicinity of any of those downpours or thunderstorms, and it could mean some higher wave heights and higher wind gusts, of course. The chance for thunderstorms is a little lower in the next couple of days because we're actually going to lose some of the heat and humidity through the weekend. We're going to drop off to the 70s, but today is very much still a scorcher with a top temp in the Champlain Valley pretty close to 90 degrees. Water temperature, a very cool and comparatively speaking 67 degrees at the Burlington Gauge. All right, we'll dive more into that forecast in just a few moments. You don't want to miss it. We'll see you then.
We are your local election headquarters. The second night of the first Democratic presidential debate put many top contenders on one stage. Ray Bogan reports from Miami.
The second round began with kitchen table issues, taxes, jobs, and the economy.
In our America, no one should have to work more than one job to have a roof over their head and food on the table.
Healthcare took the spotlight again.
Under our plan, people go to any doctor they want, any hospital they want. We will substantially lower the cost of healthcare in this country because we'll stop the greed.
Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants.
Our country is healthier when everybody is healthier.
Questions about immigration and the crisis at the southern border brought the most heated debate.
If you take a lot of children and you put them in a detainment center, thus inflicting chronic trauma upon them, that's called child abuse. This is collective child abuse.
The national spotlight gave lesser-known candidates with lower poll numbers a chance to stand out.
China, they do pirate our intellectual property. It's a massive problem. But the tariffs and the trade war are just punishing businesses and producers and workers on both sides.
And Bernie Sanders is getting some rest after that debate while supporters talk about how well that they think he did. Local 44's Mike Hoey spent the night at a Sanders watch party.
Dozens of people passed up a beautiful Thursday evening at Burlington's Church Street Marketplace to cram into the Sanders campaign's Vermont headquarters.
I'm particularly concerned about climate change, health care, and equalizing the financial playing fields. It appears that the more vigorously his ideas are debated, the more people come on board.
Enough Bernie supporters gathered there before the NBC News debate started that campaign volunteers and staff set up overflow seating.
I hope he's really assertive and gets his time in, and I hope he sticks to his economic justice reform.
I'm really curious about how he's going to address gun control in light of the recent 7 Days article. I want to see if he has anything to say about that.
7 Days reported earlier this week that Sanders told them in 2013, quote, "My own view on guns is, everything being equal, states should make those decisions." During the debate, Sanders called the 7 Days piece a mischaracterization of his thinking. After the debate, Diane Miller told us how she thought the senator had done with the issue of climate change.
I wish that they had given him more time to express his plans for it. He was only able to reply to other people instead of lay out his ideas.
She feels Sanders did have enough time to discuss health care, and Miller believes he was able to get some of his views on economic inequality across.
I'm very confident that since that's always been his #1 issue, that there'll be plenty of time going forward to go into more details.
As for her opinion that the more Sanders' ideas are debated, the more people come around to them.
I heard a great deal of that, and it sounded very much to me like Gillibrand is opting to potentially be his running mate.
Mike Hoey, Local 44 News, Burlington.
The next Democratic primary debates are scheduled for July 30th and the 31st in Detroit. Around the nation this morning, the House passed the Senate's version of a border funding bill yesterday. The bill aims to address what's being called a humanitarian crisis at the southern border. It passed 305 to 102, and the passage came after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi reversed her previous call to reconcile the House and the Senate bills ahead of the July 4th recess. But Democratic progressives say they are not happy and now heads to President Trump for approval. And Thursday marked the final day of the Supreme Court term and included a big win for New York. In one of the most anticipated decisions, the justices decided that the government cannot add a question in the 2020 census asking people if they are a U.S. citizen. New York's AG Letitia James responds to that.
Every single person in this country deserves to be counted, plain and simple. And today, thanks to the Supreme Court's decision, we will have an opportunity to do just that.
But it wasn't a total victory either, as Local 44's Alexander Limon explains. This is not the final decision because the case was sent back to a lower court.
Let freedom ring! Count me in! The U.S. Supreme Court blocked the Trump administration from asking people if they're a U.S. citizen on the census, at least for now.
I'm very pleased with the news. I'm glad the Supreme Court ruled that way.
A group of states led by New York sued to stop the administration, saying the addition of a citizenship question would lead to an undercount. Nevada Senator Jackie Rosen says that would be detrimental to many states.
Community grants or state grants are based in that. Even our representation.
States like California and Texas could lose seats in Congress, and the census determines which states get hundreds of billions of federal dollars for things like schools and roads. In the majority opinion, Chief Justice Roberts wrote that the government failed to give a good enough reason of why the citizenship question was being added to the census.
The idea that his motivation for adding a citizenship question on the census was to enforce the Voting Rights Act made absolutely no sense.
However, Hans von Spakovsky with the Heritage Foundation says the High Court did not rule the question is unconstitutional.
The Justice Department, which represents the government, has got to provide more evidence, more information, more data to the lower court. But if they do that, and they satisfy the court, well, then they can add the citizenship question.
It's unlikely it would happen before the 2020 forms are finalized and printed. In a tweet, President Trump suggests delaying the census until the case is resolved. In Washington, Alexandra Limon.
And from the Capitol, we have the latest now on a bill that we have been following. Aaron's Law requiring education in schools to prevent child sexual abuse and exploitation passed both chambers in New York State this session. Local 44's Karina Capabianca has more.
It's a bill that was first introduced in the New York State Legislature in 2012, and now Aaron's Law is on its way to the governor's desk. Supporters say it will give children the instruction they need on what to do if something isn't right.
It's going to give them an opportunity, to learn about what is appropriate touch and what isn't, and if you are inappropriately touched, then you're to immediately report it to either your parents or to the police or a teacher or person of authority.
The bill had previously passed in the Senate but failed to make it to the Assembly floor. This session, there was a new chair of the Assembly Education Committee, and the bill was moved through.
It's incredible to see how quickly a bottleneck just opens and common sense legislation moves forward.
Greenberg says it was long overdue.
Not only will it take predators off the street, it'll give an opportunity to get these children help.
If the governor signs off on the bill, New York will be the 37th state to have a version of Aaron's Law on the books. At the New York State Capitol, Karina Capabianca.
That legislation would target students in grades K through 8 in public schools. 7:37 this morning. Looking for ways to avoid scams? Well, why not learn from the best, right? Coming up, the man who inspired the movie Catch Me If You Can shares his advice. But it's anniversary time. Yay, we're celebrating with you every morning on Local 44. We're wishing a happy 39th anniversary to Nancy and Mike Dion. Congratulations.
Oh, how sweet. Yay. And we have a birthday too.
Yay.
A happy 3rd birthday to Patrick Garrett Foreign from Berwyn.
That's awesome. Happy birthday.
If you have a birthday or anniversary, we want to celebrate with you. Send them in to birthdays@mychamplainvalley.com. It's names, how old, a picture, how many years you're married,
all those things.
where you live, all the details, favorite food, I don't know. We'll do it at this time every day.
Now, meteorologist Amanda Tebow with your Sky Tracker forecast.
20 minutes before 8 o'clock. Good morning to you. Happy Friday. Beautiful sunshine overhead. Again, we've been treated to 3 warm, but more importantly, sunny days in a row. Not totally dry days. Of course, we had our showers and thunderstorms Wednesday afternoon. Some of you saw a few more of them overnight. Maybe they woke you up as they rolled south out of Canada. We could see some more showers and thunderstorms to punctuate your Friday, but again, it's not until late. We're talking overnight activity as another decaying batch of them drops south. For now, though, all we're eyeing today is increasing thin, high cirrus clouds. And that's actually very important because it'll be the determining factor in whether this is our first 90-degree day or not. Now, not everybody has a chance at seeing 90. Most of us are solidly in the 80s. But the Champlain Valley and the Connecticut River Valley are going to come fairly close, and maybe an hour delay of those thin, high clouds could be enough to get you to that 90-degree point. Then overnight, a few showers, maybe a couple rumbles of thunder. And I'm sure you've heard by now, we've been talking about it all week this weekend. Showers and thunderstorms are a big playmaker. We are, there you go, in the 80s. Yikes, lots of orange on this map. Get ready for another hot day. If you haven't put the AC in yet, this morning is probably a good time to do it. Dew points are in the low to mid 60s. Could be worse, could be more humid. It's not terribly oppressive, but it is a smidge sticky, and the wind isn't helping. Just about 5 to 10 miles per hour, very light out of the south. We'll switch that wind over to out of the northwest for the weekend. And this weekend's highs are significantly cooler, down to the 70s. So tomorrow we only have about a 10 to 15 degree temp climb. We'll start in the 60s, we'll move to the 70s. There will likely be a little bit of sunshine around on Saturday. It's not a washout this weekend, but we have still some showers and storms lingering in the morning, a break midday, and then more of them popping up through the second half of the day. And then on Sunday, you can probably guess where I'm going with this, more scattered showers and thunderstorms blossom. So we're sort of off and on as we go through the weekend with the rain. Not the nicest, but again, if you're trying to get outside for a few hours, you could probably make that happen, I think. Then early next week, we return to the 80s for the start of July. There's one small hiccup with some showers on Tuesday. Otherwise, we're looking pretty quiet right through the 4th. Your forecast, if you missed part of it, is up on our website. You can check out mychamplainvalley.com. As always, even if we're not on air, just look for the word weather. Spencer?
Thank you, Amanda. All right, in Consumer Matters, he posed as a pilot, lawyer, and doctor. Frank Abagnale is one of the most respected experts on fraud in the entire world. Local 44's Spencer Conlon sat down with the former con man to talk about his efforts to fight against what made him famous. Take a look at this.
It wasn't a glamorous life by any means.
Frank Abagnale, once a teenage con man.
Before I was old enough to drink, I wrote about $2.5 million worth of bad checks in 26 foreign countries in all 50 U.S. states.
His story of lies and deception inspired him to write a book titled Catch Me If You Can. It was later turned into a Hollywood film directed by Steven Spielberg.
I'd like to cash this check here and then I'd like to take you out for a steak dinner.
It followed Abagnale's life as a high school dropout who figured out how to beat the system. He found work as a pilot for Pan Am, with a fake pilot's license, a lawyer with a forged Harvard law degree, and even became a doctor.
Everything I did, I kind of fell into. It wasn't premeditated. I think the fact that I was an adolescent is why I really got away with it, not because I was a genius or anything like that, but because I had no fear of being caught.
The law finally caught up with him at 21 in France. He also served time in Swedish prison before he was sentenced to 12 years in the United States. But Abagnale would only serve 4 of those years.
When I was 26 years old, the government offered to take me out of prison on the condition I go to work with an agency of the federal government for the remainder of my sentence.
Abagnale took the offer and started working with the FBI. And more than 40 years later, he is still helping the agency fight the crime of fraud, which he says is
so much easier to do today what I did 50 years ago because I didn't have the technology that exists today.
5 years ago, Abagnale teamed up with the AARP to help seniors avoid becoming a victim of fraud.
They're always going to at some point ask you for money or ask you for information. That's the red flag.
He says if you do fall victim to a scam, coming forward is a must.
There's nothing to be ashamed of if you are scammed or if someone attempts to scam you. The smartest people in the world have been scammed.
Along with his life experience as a con man, these are things Abagnale discusses in his presentations around the country.
We hope all of our members will walk out of there feeling armed with the kind of resources and understanding they need to protect themselves, their friends, and their family from frauds and scams.
Spencer Conlon, Local 44 News, Burlington.
And the Beatles are back, or is someone claiming their fame? Coming up, Julia Swift reviews the new movie Yesterday.
You're watching Local 44 Morning Brew, local news that matters. You're watching Local 44 Morning Brew, local news that matters.
Myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking.
Oh, sorry, love, I'll get it.
Good start, though. Very pretty.
It's Terry!
Terry!
Terry,
Hey!
Jack's just playing us a new song.
Oh, what's this one called?
Leave It Be.
Let It Be.
Oh, excellent. Well, rock on, Jack. When I find myself in times of trouble.
Would you like a drink, Terry?
Dad.
Well, I'd already heard that bit.
Yeah, I'll get a beer, please, Jed.
Excellent! Carry on, Jacko. I'll be back.
Hurry it up, darling, you're losing the crowd.
When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes.
Hello, love. I'm just at Jed and Sheila's house listening to Jack's new song. Let Him Be.
Let It Be.
Let It Be. Listen, I'll call you back when it's over, all right? All right, carry on broadcasting, young man.
Maybe start after the first bit. I've heard it 3 times.
Christ, this is Let It Be!
Supportive parents, man. Oh, well. It's Friday, so we're taking you to the box office.
Julia Swift is here to review the new movie Yesterday.
It looks cool.
Such an amazing idea.
Yeah.
Like the minute I heard about this, I'm like, brilliant,
Yeah.
right? I mean, so the idea is Yesterday is about a guy who, Hamish Patel, who is an actor who's been in EastEnders, a UK soap opera for years, and he did an amazing job in this, right? So he's a young songwriter who cannot get anybody to listen to what he's doing, right? He's playing on the street, nobody's paying attention, and he gets hit by a bus, and all of a sudden wakes up in a world where nobody's ever heard of the Beatles. So he decides to use their music and starts playing their music and becomes a huge worldwide star, right?
Wow.
So brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Such an amazing idea. And it's written by Richard Curtis, who is my favorite screenwriter of all time. He wrote Notting Hill and Love Actually and Four Weddings and a Funeral.
So good.
Such an amazing writer. And it's directed by Danny Boyle, who did Slumdog Millionaire and Trainspotting. So the Danny Boyle part of it wasn't my favorite because Danny Boyle has this tendency to be very self-conscious where he does things that make you realize you're watching a movie, and so that takes you out of the experience. So for example, in one scene in this, when he starts becoming really famous, he just puts the actor in a room and has all of these screens around him start showing all these different news clips. And you're like, well, that's not really, you're telling me I'm in a movie instead of me like really feeling it and being there, right?
Gotcha.
So I wish he hadn't done that. Kate McKinnon is in it.
She's hilarious.
Hysterical. And you know, I have to say, I haven't seen Kate McKinnon before that she did some physical comedy here. And usually her comedy is much more verbal, but she was great with physical comedy. I mean, even the way she sat when she was talking to him, and she plays his agent who's all about the money. And I was like having flashbacks to my agent in Hollywood. I'm like, oh, you totally got that.
Wow, nailed it.
So nailed it. And the music, when he is singing the music, he's not trying to be the Beatles, but he has a charisma and passion, and it was fabulous.
That's awesome.
So it was a really wonderful movie. There's something I wish I could tell you, but I don't want to give it away.
Oh, no.
There's a surprise.
No
There's a
spoilers.
surprise visitor in the end
Ooh.
that is so wonderful that just makes your heart soar. So this definitely is a heart-soaring musical. Lily James plays the love interest, who's his best friend manager who's been there all along. And she was from Mamma Mia.
Yeah.
Here We Come Again. And I loved her in that. Yeah. And in this, she just didn't have that much to play with. That was sort of the role. And this is an amazing, fun film, but because it's, you know, I expected so much because of the screenwriter. I feel like he could have done so much more with Lily James.
Right.
The love story really wasn't earned in this, but the other story was so interesting and so fabulous. And it's not just it's not just Beatles that never happen. Other things never happen. Like he orders a Coke, and they're like, they think he's talking about cocaine,
Right.
and he's like, ooh, Pepsi. So other things pop up, and it just adds this really interesting layer. So
fascinating idea, really well acted. I wish somebody had directed it other than Danny Boyle, who let us get lost in the story a little more. But Richard Curtis is amazing as a screenwriter. Could have had a little more depth, but still one of my most fun experiences. Just fun, light movie to go see. So if you have any interest in Beatles, it's going to be amazing.
That's a great review.
I want to watch it just for the surprise ending.
Yeah.
Like, who is it? Who is it?
Oh,
Maybe work it just for that.
It's just heartwarming.
Oh, very exciting. All right, there you go. You have to make that decision for yourself now. All right.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you, Julia. We'll be back.
You're watching Local 44 Morning Brew, local news that matters.
It is 7:56. Good morning. I'm Polixeni Manjari. To celebrate National HIV Testing Day, Vermont Cares held free testing on Church Street yesterday afternoon. And according to them, there are over 600 Vermonters known to be living with HIV, but the real number may actually be much higher. Recent data shows that 1 in 7 people have HIV, and they don't even know it. Health experts say being on the right medication can help people with HIV live longer and prevent it from spreading. Vermont Cares hopes that the setup brought awareness to all Vermonters.
Vermont is really lucky to have a strong network of HIV testing centers all across the state. Getting tested takes 20 minutes, it's free, it's confidential, and there's no reason someone shouldn't get tested.
The Vermont Cares in Burlington offers walk-in testing, while the Rutland and St. Johnsbury locations are all by appointment. And turning now to community matters, Burlington celebrated the grand opening of its newest public park. Waterworks Park opened Thursday in an event hosted by Mayor Murrow Weinberger. The park will create new access to part of the water's edge, including a boardwalk and walking paths too. The mayor says that this is a new and welcome addition. The park also contains features designed to increase accessibility, safety, and sustainability as well. And we're tossing it over to Amanda Tebow. She's going to tell us about today's hot weather. Hey, Amanda.
Hi, good morning, everybody. It is going to be a very warm one. Hopefully you're ready to tackle that heat. I know some of us are a little sleep deprived thanks to some overnight thunder boomers that rolled through northern New York and northern Vermont, particularly near the Champlain Valley. We had a pretty strong batch of storms that decayed as it dropped south out of Canada. This morning, though, all we're left with is sunshine. If you slip through the thunder and lightning, you may not even know it was around, except for maybe some of the wet pavement outside. We are going to warm up very fast today under that late June sun, all the way into the 80s again. 90 degrees is not entirely impossible. The Champlain Valley and the Connecticut River Valley could earn that extra couple of bonus degrees to hit 90 if thin high clouds that increase this afternoon hold off.
From WFFF, this is Local 44 Morning Brew.
Good morning, everyone. It is 8 o'clock on the dot on this Friday, June 28th. Welcome to Local 44 Morning Brew. I'm Paul Manjari with meteorologist Amanda Tebow.
Good morning.
First up this morning, it's a problem that Vermont's top dog wants to put an end to.
Hear what TJ Donovan plans to do to stop the selling of PFAs. And the man, the myth, the legend, he's known for lies and scams. He's now speaking out.
Frank Abagnale tells you how to avoid getting scammed. All right, day 3.
Day 3, here we go. Heat, humidity, sunshine.
All the things.
Check. And a chance for a couple of thunderstorms to punctuate the day. First off, though, we have got to talk about those temperatures because we're going to warm quickly today, right past the 60s and 70s. And this estimate of our afternoon highs might be a little on the conservative side, and that's because 90 degrees could be possible through the Champlain Valley if thin high clouds that are expected to increase this afternoon hold off a bit. Nighttime lows will be down to 60s. There is a chance again overnight to early Saturday for a few showers, maybe a couple of rumbles of thunder as well. Mid and upper 80s too, potentially nearing 90 degrees in the Champlain Valley, down to the low and mid 60s. We stay away from 90 in the Northeast Kingdom, but we definitely get into the 80s, low to mid 80s here, low 60s tonight. In addition to the Champlain Valley, the Connecticut River Valley could get close, if not hit 90 degrees as we warm today, and then tonight you only fall off to the 60s. From there, we've got cooler weather in time for the weekend, but it's not a repeat of last weekend by any means. The sun's going to be pretty hard to come by. We'll talk about that and rain chances in a couple minutes.
New this morning, Rutland City Police are investigating a suspicious death that started after a probation officer was doing a welfare check at a home. This all happening on Harrison Avenue Thursday night. An officer at the scene told us a man was found unresponsive inside the home, and there were objects there that led them to think that the death is suspicious. Neighbors told us the man who lived in the home was a quiet older man. This is, of course, a developing story, so we will keep you updated with new information as we get it. And some updates for you this morning. A man's house in Franklin was destroyed by a fire, but he was rescued just in time. Firefighters said that 65-year-old William Mayo noticed that a woman was being frantic on her porch Wednesday while smoke was coming from her garage. Mayo then found some people who could help rescue the man inside of that home. The Richford Fire Department discovered that the fire actually began near an outlet in that garage. And an autopsy is scheduled for a Vermont man killed in a motorcycle crash in Hinesburg Thursday afternoon. This happened on Pond Road. Police say 27-year-old David Raymond of St. George went off the road, crashed into the woods and a rock wall too. It appears that he was speeding when he lost control of the car. CPR was in progress when crews arrived, but Raymond was pronounced dead at the scene. Turning now to environmental matters, Vermont's AG is taking on several national companies that make and sell PFAs, potentially toxic chemicals that have contaminated the state's groundwater. TJ Donovan said that those chemicals have caused significant harm to Vermonters and the environment too. Local 44's Courtney Kramer has a story.
Vermont's Attorney General said his office is targeting major chemical companies for their role contaminating the state.
By putting harmful and dangerous PFAS chemicals into Vermont's environment.
The lawsuits filed Wednesday accuse 3M and DuPont, among others, for damages to the state's drinking water and groundwater. Donovan said for decades the companies were aware of the environmental harm and health dangers, but continued to manufacture them despite any disclosure.
They never provided public notice of the potential harm and the health risks from these chemicals.
In 2016, the state first discovered widespread contamination in Bennington County. More than 300 private drinking wells had high PFOA levels. And studies show a potential link between high levels in people and health problems, including increased risk of cancer and problems with pregnancy.
So we're talking about incredibly small concentrations that can have significant impacts on public health and the environment.
Julie Moore, the secretary of the Agency of Natural Resources, said her team will be testing 700 public water supply sites by the end of the year to get an idea if any presence of the chemicals still exist so the state can take action to remove the toxins.
These PFAS chemicals are so ubiquitous in our environment at this point. They don't break down over time, and so it's not just the immediate public health impact, but those long-term chronic impacts that we're concerned about.
The goal is to clean it up, and the goal is to make Vermont whole. And the goal is to hold these companies accountable.
Courtney Kramer, Local 44 News, Burlington.
And Vermont is not alone either. Many other states around the country have also taken legal action against the makers of PFAS. And the state of Vermont hopes that a new technique may address a summer worry at Lake Carmi.
Woohoo!
Oh! That switch was flipped Thursday on a nearly $1 million aeration project. The lake has struggled with outbreaks of blue-green algae in recent years, and the warm weather only making it worse. The idea is that the project will oxygenate the lake and recirculate the water. The president of the Lake Carmi Campus Association hopes this will solve the problem.
It's based on science, and we have the utmost confidence that it's going to help tremendously with keeping the lake free of algae blooms.
A Michigan-based company is the one who installed this system, and this weekend is supposed to be a big one for the lake with many events leading up to the 4th of July. In Consumer Matters this morning, well, he's posed as a pilot, a lawyer, and even a doctor. Frank Abagnale is one of the most respected experts in the world when it comes to fraud. Local 44 Spencer Collins sat down with him to talk about his efforts to fight against the things that made him famous.
It wasn't a glamorous life by any means.
Frank Abagnale, once a teenage con man.
Before I was old enough to drink, I wrote about $2.5 million worth of bad checks in 26 foreign countries in all 50 U.S. states.
His story of lies and deception inspired him to write a book titled Catch Me If You Can. It was later turned into a Hollywood film directed by Steven Spielberg.
I'd like to cash this check here and I'd like to take you out for a steak dinner.
It followed Abagnale's life as a high school dropout who figured out how to beat the system. He found work as a pilot for Pan Am with a fake pilot's license, a lawyer with a forged Harvard law degree, and even became a doctor.
Everything I did I kind of fell into. It wasn't premeditated. I think the fact that I was an adolescent is why I really got away with it, not because I was a genius or anything like that, but because I had no fear of being caught.
The law finally caught up with him at 21 in France. He also served time in Swedish prison before he was sentenced to 12 years in the United States. But Abagnale would only serve 4 of those years.
When I was 26 years old, the government offered to take me out of prison on the condition I go to work with an agency of the federal government for the remainder of my sentence.
Abagnale took the offer and started working with the FBI. And more than 40 years later, he is still helping the agency fight the crime of fraud, which he says is
so much easier to do today what I did 50 years ago because I didn't have the technology that exists today.
5 years ago, Abagnale teamed up with the AARP to help seniors avoid becoming a victim of fraud.
They're always going to at some point ask you for money or ask you for information. That's the red flag.
He says if you do fall victim to a scam, coming forward is a must.
There's nothing to be ashamed of if you are scammed or if someone attempts to scam you. The smartest people in the world have been scammed.
Along with his life experience as a con man, these are things Abagnale discusses in his presentations around the country.
We hope all of our members will walk out of there feeling armed with the kind of resources and understanding they need to protect themselves, their friends, and their family from frauds and scams.
Spencer Conlon, Local 44 News, Burlington.
Very interesting, to say the least. All right, 8:08 this morning, this next segment will have you jumping for joy. Coming up, we'll share why these onion rings are this week's 44's finest.
You're watching Local 44 Morning Brew, local news that matters.
8:11, good morning. Happy Friday to you. We're off to a toasty start already, jumping to 72 in Montreal, 70 in Plattsburgh, just a degree behind in Burlington at 67 in St. Jay. Smack dab in the middle of the 60s from Newport to Montpelier and Rutland. Everybody eyeing the 80s today. There could even be a little extra credit, a few bonus degrees earned in the Champlain Valley and the Connecticut River Valley. That would take us closer to 90. For now, though, let's talk about cloud cover, because we do start with a full sky of sun. But thin, high cirrus clouds will start to move in this evening ahead of yet another decaying or a weakening wave that drops south out of Canada tonight. That wave will bring a few showers, maybe a couple rumbles of thunder overnight, like some of you in northern New York and northern Vermont saw last night. And then some of the showers still stick around into Saturday morning, so they don't clear out as quickly first thing tomorrow. Those thin high clouds are important to the forecast because it will be a determining factor, and probably the only determining factor to whether we make it to 90 or we get stuck in the upper 80s in the Champlain and Connecticut River valleys. Everybody is really, really warm with a smidge of humidity and not a lot of wind yet again. So for the third day in a row, we're talking about those summertime temps. Today likely to be the warmest out of those 3 days. Dew points in the low 60s, no change there. It's not any more or less humid than the last 2 days. And there is not any more wind either. Still fairly calm, just 5 to 10 miles per hour out of the south. We'll kick off the day tomorrow in the 60s, but then you only get about a 10 to 15 degree jump tomorrow into the 70s. So the weekend is cooler. That's our big upside. Another big upside, it's not a washout, but it's not as nice as last weekend, that's for sure. We've got a lot of clouds around, still some showers early Saturday, a few breaks of partial sun through the middle of the day, but then more showers and thunderstorms that bubble up Saturday afternoon, evening, and then we're going to do that all over again for Sunday too. So it's not raining all the time everywhere all weekend long. There will be some dry stretches and maybe even some partial sunshine too, but it's not a repeat of last weekend. High pressure holds off until we get into July. On Monday, there's a small hiccup with some showers on Tuesday. It looks like for now dry weather holds for the 3rd and 4th too. Your full forecast is up on our website. You can check out mychamplainvalley.com for a recap. If we're not on air, just look for the word weather. Spencer?
All right, thank you, Amanda. In Community Matters this morning, it's a dinner with a view that, let me tell you cannot miss. The Champlain Valley 3-hour round-trip dinner train is back, and it's hitting the railroad. We're joined here by Nicole, who is the manager of passenger services at Green Mountain Railroad, to tell us all about the dinner train. Nicole, how are you?
I'm great.
Doing good? Good. All right, so I am from Michigan. I don't know too much about the dinner train. I've never been on it before. Can you tell me about it?
Absolutely. So it's a 3-hour round trip starting in Burlington. We go south to Middlebury and back. It's about 3 hours round trip, 60 miles. And on board you get a 3-course dinner that's actually cooked right on board the train.
Okay. What kind of food are we talking here? Does it change?
We have one menu until we switch it up in the fall. So we have seasonal menus, one for the spring and summer and then one for the fall.
Okay.
There's really something for everybody. We can accommodate gluten-free, and we have a vegan entree, and every type of meat. So it's pretty perfect.
Perfect, yeah. So there's something for everybody. And so people of all ages too? Kids?
So we have a restriction 6 and up, just so that we can, mostly because of the length of the trip and the hours. Since we depart at 5:30, we don't get back till 8:30. It can be a little bit long and late for younger kids. But we do have fall foliage excursions down in Chester, which are very family friendly. And every year in May, to start up our season, we have Kids Day, where kids get to ride free.
Oh, great. So what else is involved with Kids Day? Is it just the free event?
Yeah, so Kids Day is, the Burlington Parks and Rec does like a big festival right on the waterfront for kids. So we coincide with them and run trips to Shelburne and back, just quick trips for kids.
Oh, that's so much fun. And you were also telling me earlier something really cool, you guys, about the mystery train.
Yes.
Can you dig deep into that?
Absolutely. So we work with Upstage Productions from Minnesota. They have been writing murder mystery theater shows since the 80s and have a lot of experience working around other railroads in the United States. So we're really excited to have them. This will be our first year using Upstage Productions and also operating murder mysteries.
Oh, that's so cool.
I can't remember the last time we offered murder mystery trains.
And so what is this this murder mystery coming up going to be?
It'll be, I believe, July 12th.
Okay.
And the 13th will be the murder mystery. We'll run once a month until October.
All right, what a good idea.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I love that kind of stuff too, and I'm sure people out there do as well. So if they want to get involved, do tickets sell really fast for that kind of stuff?
They do,
okay.
Yes. So definitely jump on it while you can.
Yeah.
It'll be really fun. The murder mysteries especially, the menu is the same as the dinner train menu.
Okay.
We just have the added entertainment on board, and it's really funny. The actors are very experienced, and they know what they're doing, so it'll be really exciting.
That's really awesome. And
yeah.
You were also telling me earlier that the train does stretch across the water, and you make sure that the guy driving the train slows down so that you guys can see the sunset.
Yes.
What a cool thing.
Yes, it's really nice. So along the 3 hours, you go past a lot of beautiful scenery in Vermont.
Yeah.
It's really cool, especially for locals, to hop on board because they're seeing Vermont, even if they're from here, they're seeing it from a different perspective.
Absolutely.
So you really lose track of time and lose track of where you are in your own state. So it's very unique and very special. And then we do chase the sunset on the way back, so we go many different speeds along the route.
Okay.
But we try very hard to get that perfect pan of the Lake Champlain with the sun setting as we roll back into Burlington.
Right. They are my favorite too. There's nothing like a Vermont sunset, so
yes,
you
yes.
can't beat that. Well, thank you so much for coming on with us today.
Yeah.
You guys, if you're interested in the dinner train, all of that information is going to be on our website at mychamplainvalley.com. Thanks again, Nicole.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. We'll be right back.
You're watching Local 44 Morning Brew, local news that matters. You're watching Local 44 Morning Brew, local news that matters to Northern New York, Vermont, and New Hampshire.
Every Friday, tune into the morning as we bring you the finest food in the area with 44's Finest. Today's vote, who has the finest international cuisine? Is it Cilantro Restaurant, Gringo Jack's Southwestern Bar and Grill, The Pepper, or the Calatina Exit? Or do you want to nominate your own favorite? Well, you can just go to mychamplainvalley.com under that Living Local tab and vote. I'll announce the winner next Friday right here on the Morning Brew. And now, let's take a look at this week's 44's Finest onion rings in town. Take a look at this. For this week's 44's Finest Best Onion Rings in Town, we take you to the Workhorse Cafe in Jamaica, Vermont, where they take pride in making good food for good people. Let's go inside and see what they're all about. The irresistible deliciousness of an all-American classic, onion rings, with a twist, of course.
You know what? Honestly, it's all in the beer. Has like a strong ale flavor to it, but has that light tempura, like battering effect to it. So they're very light and fluffy, and then the onions that we use are very sweet.
The addictive fried dish that is so good, even the yogis make a pit stop after a morning full of exercise.
Yeah, right after yoga at 10 o'clock. Yeah, because they're delicious and I just love them. And this is a wonderful cook over here that makes the most incredible onion rings in the world.
The Workhorse Cafe has been around since 2015, but revamped by Kurt and Teresa Williams just 9 months ago, creating the perfect menu styled with comfort food options and the perfect atmosphere to go right along with it.
When we first opened, it was about what people wanted us to be. What was our identity going to be? You know, what did the people in the area want from us?
And believe it or not, they almost put their famous onion rings on the back burner. But the local foodies had other plans.
Everybody just kept coming in and I was like, these onion rings are awesome. These are some of the best onion rings I've ever had. So we're like, I can't take them off the menu. I have to keep them. So that's where it's kind of grown to, is that people just absolutely, they love everything about the menu. Just the onion rings just happen to be one aspect of the menu that people love.
And you can't have a bad thing here, and that's the buzz. Anyone who's had anything here, whether it's their onion rings, which are everyone's favorite, they will always have a sandwich with onion rings. They will always have a salad with onion rings, a Diet Coke, onion rings.
Staying true to those who have supplied them with the best of the best.
Reinhardt Food Service is one of our main purveyors, and you know, we've worked with them, both of us have worked with them for years. And when we opened the business, we were like, that's who our purveyor is going to be, is Reinhardt Food Service, and that's who we stick with.
Always working to make every menu item from scratch, or what Kurt calls down home cooking. These guys like to keep it simple. They use 2 ingredients, flour and beer. We're gonna go over here and let these onion rings fry until they're golden. Serving the community with the freshest eats around, but also a home-like environment that keeps them coming back.
So when you come in, it's like walking into a kitchen at home. You know, when you come into our kitchen, that's it. This is our home. You're welcome anytime, and we'll feed you. You know, you come in hungry, we'll feed you. You're not going to leave here hungry at all.
Giving this small town a place where good conversations come together over large portions of food.
We're all about community. Anything that's opened around here, we all hope and pray that it brings community together, a place where people talk to each other. I mean, we are in such a, you know, we're spread out, you know, we're in the woods, you know, our homes are not like together as they are in the cities, so you could go days without seeing anyone unless a place like this exists.
All right, Kirk, Rebecca, Teresa, why are your onion rings the best in town?
Because they're homegrown.
Hey, and that's why Workhorse Cafe is 44's finest. Cheers.
Cheers.
As one customer put it, come for the onion rings and stay for the laughs. Spencer Thomas, Local 44 News, Jamaica.
You're watching Local 44 Morning Brew, local news that matters.